Good morning, class. Take the time right now to get your notebook, your math workbook, a sheet of notebook paper, and have a pencil ready and have that notebook paper on your desk. We're going to go through some spiral review to begin. We'll probably do 5 or 6 questions like we did 2 days ago. You will be turning this in at the end, so please be doing your work. You should be quiet. You should be paying attention. If you finish before the question switches to a different question, please just be patient and do not talk until you're told to do so. So let's get started on some of these. If the sub needs to pause the video to make sure everyone has a sheet of paper, they may do so, and then we will get started. can take that down and stop, and the sub will come around and pick those up. Make sure your name is on it. As she's coming around and pick those up, go ahead and take out your math notebook. And as you take out your math notebook, turn it to your learning target index. And in your learning target index, let's look at some of our target today. We've learned about volume this week, triangles, and now we're going to look at classifying and relating quadrilaterals. I can classify and relate quadrilaterals. Once you have that done, go to your next clean page, and we will get started in just a moment. All right, so we should be getting done with that. Turn to your next clean page, like I said, and let's look at, we're going to title this Quadrilaterals. This is going to be 14.3, and actually it's 14.2 as well. So 14.2 and 14.3. And today's date is the 5th. To think about that since I'm recording this before the date. So quadrilaterals, 14.2, 14.3, and the date's the 5th of March. Now, when we are dealing with shapes, it's similar to what we were doing with the triangles. We have to be able to classify them, be able to tell why a square is a square, why a rectangle is a rectangle, what makes up a quadrilateral, what makes up a rhombus, what makes up all these things. So in order to do that, you kind of have to focus in on the main things. So first, can anybody tell me or think about, get an answer in your head, maybe hold it up with how many fingers it is. If you see the word quad, which is right here, quad, what is that telling you? If you're holding up 4 fingers, you are correct. It stands for 4. So quadrilaterals would be 4 sides. So shapes that have 4 sides. So if they have 4 sides, they're classified as a quadrilateral. So let's talk about this for a minute. So the first one is a trapezoid. Say trapezoid. Trapezoid, good. So a trapezoid is something that looks like this. And let me tell you first off, I am not a good drawer, right? So there will be better drawings in the book, but I think we can make these if we are careful enough. So trapezoid has one pair of parallel sides. One pair of parallel sides. So what does parallel mean? I guess we should have kind of stopped and talked about that first. But when we're talking about parallel sides are sides that will never touch. So if I had this arrow, this and this, these two lines will never touch. They are considered parallel. If they are perpendicular, also known as intersecting, lines, those are lines that are going to cross. So if you're looking at this shape that we just did, and you don't have to write this down, this is what I would be doing on the board if I was there. You could kind of see that this line and this line are parallel. So those are the one pair of parallel sides. But the other two lines are not parallel. Because if I kept going this way, and I kept going this way, eventually they're going to intersect right there in the middle. So that's what makes them intersecting or perpendicular lines. So a trapezoid, we see that we have parallel line here, and we have a parallel line there. Now I didn't draw them perfectly, but that's, you know, that is. And if I kept going with the other two, they would intersect. So one pair of parallel sides is considered a trapezoid. Next, we have a shape called, and these are, like I said, all quadrilaterals. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the next shape we have is probably one of the most common. It is called a parallel. Make sure I spell it correctly. Ogram. And a parallelogram could look like this. And so here we have these two lines are the same size. And this line and this line are also the same size. And so a parallelogram has two things that we look at. Number one, has two pairs of parallel sides. So this line and this line, if they kept going forever, they wouldn't touch. This line and this line, if it kept going, they would never touch. The other thing that the parallelogram has is the opposite sides are equal in length. And if you remember with the triangle, that if I see a line here and here, that means those are equal. And if there's two of them, that means these two are equal. So we have this line and this line are equal, and this line and this line are equal, and they're opposite sides. So opposite of this side is this side, opposite of this side is this side, and so they are all of equal length on opposite sides of each other. So we have trapezoid, we have parallelogram. Next, we have the rectangle. The rectangle, similar to the parallelogram, but instead of being slanted, it's really just straight up and down. So we got this, we got this, so we see they're equal. And this is also equal. And so again, we have this side is the same side as this side is the same side as this side. And we also, the difference in this one, we also have right angles. So right angle here, right angle there, right angle here, right angle there. So in this side, everything that it says with the parallelogram has two sides of parallel sides, has opposite and equal length, but this one also has 4 right angles. So we can say, is a parallel, I'm going to add this to, is a parallelogram plus, it has 4 right angles. So everything is said about the parallelogram plus the 4 right angles, which we talked about right angles with the triangles. Then we get into our next one, which It's probably my favorite one to say. It's called a rhombus. And a rhombus is just a fancy word of just a pretty normal shape. So a rhombus has 4 sides that are the same length. So this side is the same as this length, and it's the same as this length and this length. They're all 4 the same. So we're going to say 4 sides equal length. And if you're thinking about other shapes right now, there's another more common shape than this as well, but it also can be a parallelogram. And why can it be a parallelogram? Because look, it says 2 pairs of parallel sides. Well, this is parallel to this side. This one's parallel to this side. So that's 2 sides, parallel sides. Then we say opposites are equal in length. Well, this side is equal to this one's equal to this one, and vice versa. So that's opposite. But then they also, the only difference is there's 4 equal sides instead of 2 sides that are equal and 2 other sides that are equal. So we know that this can then be related to probably the most common shape that you've known since you were just a little kid, and that's called a square. And so you can already see that the square is going to be related to the rhombus because a square has 4 equal sides. So this side, this side, this side, and this side. So we can say a square is definitely a parallelogram. We can say that there are, in a square like the rectangles, there are 4 right angles. And we can say there, like the rhombus, there's 4 sides are equal to each other. We'll say equal length. So those are the different classifications. And for the longest time, I would just tell my students this, and we would just go over it. And then we would get to a point where we were trying to classify, and I couldn't understand why my students were having such a hard time classifying, because I'm like, it's pretty simple. But then I found a chart, and the book actually, and this new book that we have now has the chart in the book as well, so you can use it, but we want to add it to our notebook. But while you're doing that, I want you to go ahead and have your workbook on your desk while people finish copying this, and then we will continue on in just a moment. All right, so let's look at this. I decided I want to do a little bit different. So before we move on to the chart, turn in your book to page 666, so page 666 and 667. I know y'all are laughing. Page 666 and 667. And we have this on our notebook. Keep your notebook out. We're not done. But let's look at some of these together and kind of make sure that we know what we're doing. So if we're looking at, on this page, you see everything that we just wrote down, basically. But also, let's look in the bottom of this, and it says, classify the quadrilaterals in as many ways as possible. So when we look at this one, number 1, you go, okay, that's a square. Okay, so you immediately write down square. That's a good third grade answer. But we can say that this is more than a square. We also can say that the square is a parallelogram. Right? It's a parallelogram because it has two pairs of parallel sides. Opposite sides are equal to each other. So if it's that, we can also say. So those are two things that we can say it is. But then look at the next one. That one's pretty easy, more self-explanatory. Only can be one, and that's going to be a trapezoid. Okay, and there's really nothing else it can be. So when we're looking at these two, we're like, okay, I know that, I know it's this, but can it be anything else? And so that's what this chart's going to help us do in just a moment. So kind of leave your workbook on your desk, but go back to your notes now. And I want us to create this chart. So in your notebook, this is how we can relate all of them together. So it's like we're all of these are related, and it's kind of like we're going to create a family tree in a little bit different of a way. So at the top, I want you to write, let's just make a big shape real fast. We'll make it just like this. I'm going to scoot it up in just a minute. Okay. So there we go. We see it. So at the very top, this whole thing is quadrilaterals. Anything that I put in this shape is a quadrilateral. A quadrilateral, we talked about it already. It represents 4, right? So if it's representing 4 things, or 4 sides, then it could be anything. It could be any type of shape. So let's make our shape like this. That looks like 3. Let's fix that. Sorry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So 4 sides. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And then we're kind of breaking it up into, so anything that has 4 sides is a quadrilateral. But now, what about the trapezoid? We'll start with it. The trapezoid is kind of in a part of the family all by itself. So we're going to put the trapezoid right here. Put a big circle around it. And that's why it was so easy to identify the trapezoid, is because a trapezoid is a trapezoid. It can't really be anything else, because if you remember what we said at the beginning, it's the only quadrilateral that only has one pair of parallel sides. The parallelogram, the rectangle, the rhombus, the square all have 2 pairs of parallel sides. So we know that a trapezoid is kind of by itself. So that, like I said, that means all the other ones are kind of together. And so we're going to group them together. So I'm going to make a big shape inside here. And we're going to call these, everything that's inside here is considered a parallelogram. Okay? And so when we broke up the parallelogram, we kind of said 2 different things, okay? We talked about the rectangle, and we talked about the rhombus. And there's one more shape we talked about. It's at the very bottom. We talked about the square, and it actually goes right in here. And I didn't leave enough room, so I'm just going to write it right here. So looking at this, we can kind of see how everything's related. A square is related to a rectangle. How is the square related to a rectangle? Well, think about it. They both have 90-degree angles. So if we look right here, right? If I look at the square and the rectangle, they both have 90 degrees. So that's how they're related to a rectangle. But the square is also related to the rhombus. Why is the square related to the rhombus? Because all have 4 equal sides. So even though it doesn't have a 90-degree angle, it's related to rhombus. But why is the rectangle, square, and rhombus all related to the parallelogram? Well, remember, going back up here, the parallelogram, there's 2 pairs of parallel sides. Opposites are equal in length. So we have parallel side, parallel side, parallel side, parallel side. These are equal, these are equal. So each of these check off those boxes too. So if I go, hey, is a square a parallelogram? You can say yes. I can say, is a rhombus a rectangle? I would say no, right? But as it's related to it, it's just not, right? Can I say a trapezoid is related to a square? No. So using this, it kind of helps you. So when I'm looking at what each thing is, it kind of helps me identify those things. So now going back into your workbook, I want you to use your workbook or use your notebook to answer questions. Let's see if we're looking at page, I'll raise this up just a little bit. All right, looking at this, we see, I want you to use this to help do questions 3, 4, 5, and 6. So do these 3 questions. And I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to work on that. Give you about 4 minutes to work on that, starting now. Remember, as you're doing this, that you can have multiple answers when you're classifying. You're not just saying, this is one shape. Tell me how it's related to each other. I'll give you about 1 more minute. All right, so as we get to a stopping point here, or getting to that, let's look at this first one. The first one's pretty easy to me because we see immediately that it is a parallelogram, right? Why is it a parallelogram? Because if you think about it, there are 4 sides that are parallel. This side's parallel to this side, and they're the same size. This one's parallel to this side, and the same size. There's no 90-degree angle, so it can't be a square, and it can't be a rectangle. And it can't be a rhombus because it doesn't have 4 equal sides, right? So it only can be a parallelogram. But look at this next one, okay? We have 90 degree, 90 degree, 90 degree, 90 degree. We have a one side that is all 4 are the same side. So we can say that this is a parallelogram. And you're like, well, how can I say it's a parallelogram? Because it has 4 sides and it has 2 sets of parallel sides, right? And the opposites are equal to each other. So this side's equal to this side's equal to this side. So that, and then this side is parallel, and this side's parallel, and then that side, that side. So that makes it a parallelogram. It can be a square because we got 4 right angles and 4 equal sides. It could be a rhombus because of the same thing, right? That's how they're related. But the last thing, can it be anything else? It also could be, obviously, it also is a quadrilateral, right? We also could say this one was a quadrilateral as it is 4 sides as well. So really, that's really the first thing we could say, but it says to classify the quadrilateral, so it's already kind of said for us. Same thing on this one. I would say it's a parallelogram. Why? Because we got this side is equal to this side is equal to this side, parallel, 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 parallel. Then we obviously can say it's a rectangle. And the reason we know it's a rectangle is because we got everything that the parallelogram is, but then we have the 4 right angles. And lastly, we got this one over here where we have a rhombus. Okay, a rhombus is where we have 4 equal sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And the angles are not the same, but as long as the sides are the same, it's a rhombus, which also makes it a parallelogram. So can you see how this is kind of helping you a little bit on this? And it really helps when there's not any words. So look in your book, turn in your book to page, trying to find it, let's see, page 672, page 672. Okay, and we're going to look at these 2 on here. Trying to find it on mine as well. And so now we're kind of saying, is this a true or false statement? So on this one we go, okay, tell whether the statement is true or false. We're going to use this chart at the top to help us as well. So the first question is look at number 1. It says some rhombuses are squares. Well, are the rhombuses and squares related? They are, because why? They have 4 equal sides. So we're going to say true. So the main difference is a rhombus doesn't have to have 4 right angles, but it can have 4 right angles. Okay, what about number 2? All parallelograms are rectangles. So if it's a parallelogram, is it always going to be a rectangle? No, because it also could be a rhombus or a square. So we're going to say that is false. And that's because it could be a square or a rhombus. It can't just, it's not saying parallelogram and rectangles, that's all it can be, right? So that one's pretty easy. You just have to think each question through. So look on the next page, page 673. And on page 673, still using this chart, I want you to do, let's just do the odd numbers. So 3, 5, and 7. Do those 3 real fast. I'll give you about a minute or so to do that. True or false, and explain why. Be able to tell me why. This is something that they put on ACAP all the time, so it's something that is important for sure. All right, so looking at the first one, it says all rectangles are square. So are all rectangles squares? No, because some rectangles can just be rectangles and not just a square. So we're going to say false. Number 5. Some rhombuses are rectangles. Rhombuses and rectangles, they can be because they both have 4. They can have 4 right angles, just like a rhombus or rectangle has 4 right angles. So we're going to say true. Okay. You can kind of see how they could, but the key word there. On this one, it said all. On this one, it said some. So when it says some, a lot of times the question is going to be true. Okay? When it says all, a lot of times it's going to be false. But look at number 7. All squares are rhombuses. In this case, that would be true because the 4 equal sides.